There are truths that one learns very late in life, and one of them is this. Not everything is told. Not because people are bad, not because we should live with distrust, but because there are things that are weakened if spoken about too soon. There are processes that are contaminated if exposed too soon, and there are seeds that do not flourish if they are not shown before they sprout. I have seen talented people fail, not because of a lack of ability, but because of too much exposure. And I've also seen seemingly ordinary people achieve great things because they knew how to keep quiet. I learned this from the Japanese, who are masters of discretion, and from Latin Americans who sometimes talk too much so fast and so loudly that they scare their own dreams. There are 5 things that one must keep secret if one wants to have success, peace, and purpose. 5 things that one should not tell just anyone because they are delicate, fragile, sacred. And the first is this: your plans before they are ready. But today I do not want to explain that yet. Today I want to prepare the ground, because to understand why one must remain silent, one must first understand something deeper. Silence is not a hiding place, it is discipline. At a young age, one believes that sharing everything brings support. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. The truth is that many times when you share too quickly, what you receive is not support, but laut, hamalin. It is not encouragement, but comparison. It is not effort, but fear from others. And the fear of others, if you are not careful, can become your own fear. One day, a young man at a conference told me, Kenji, whenever I tell you my dreams, people turn me off. Hey, Mary, from Go. And I replied, they're not turning you off. They're showing you where you should be silent. There are conversations that one has to learn to turn into prayer. There are ideas that one should write down, not publish. There are projects that one should cultivate, not announce. Because success is not built in a crowd, it's built in private. In Japan, they say, bamboo grows 7 years underground before it peeks out 1 centimeter. 7 years in silence, 7 years without applause, 7 years without recognition, 7 years that no one sees. But when it finally sprouts, it grows faster and stronger than any tree. Human success is the same. What no one sees is what sustains what everyone admires. That's why when one begins a path to success, silence is protection. It protects energy, it protects clarity, it protects identity. Because when one talks too much, one begins to hear opinions that one didn't ask for, criticisms that one doesn't need, and judgments that don't build air. And it's not a lack of confidence, it's emotional intelligence. You need to understand that not everyone knows how to care for what still exists fragile in oneself. The second thing that one must keep a secret, although I will not elaborate on it yet, is your spiritual life. Not because it is shameful, but because it is intimate. The spiritual loses its strength when it becomes a spectacle. The third thing that must be kept is your healing process. Not because you cannot talk about it, but because there are wounds that heal better without so much external touch. The fourth thing is your acts of kindness. Goodness is not to be presumed. It is lived. And the fifth is the most delicate, your deepest pain, not to hide it. Not to hide it, but to protect it from those who could not understand it. But we will elaborate on each one later. I want you to remember an image today. Silence as a garden where your decisions grow without noise. It is not isolation. It is not distance. It is maturity. It is understanding. It is respect for what you are building. Because when one begins to speak and listen more, one discovers a powerful truth. Many people have opinions, but few understand. Many people judge, but few accompany. Many people criticize, but few edify. And to go far, one needs more edification than opinion. When I started giving conferences, I made a mistake that many people make. I would talk about my projects too soon, and there would always be someone who would say, but that's so too hard, that's not gonna work, no one's gonna see that. And during that time, I listened and weakened until I learned something that changed my life. Not everything you hear is for you, and not everything you think you have to say. Silence is a form of self-respect. I am silent not because I can't speak. I am silent because I am building. I am silent not because I fear judgment. I am silent because I protect my vision. I am silent not because of mistrust. I am silent because I have learned that the sacred needs space. There are those who still believe that being transparent means telling everything, right? Being transparent is being honest, not indiscreet. Learning to keep what matters a secret is one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence because the soul, like the seed, needs darkness to germinate. No. And with this, I want to begin the journey of this content. We will delve into those 5 things that, if you know how to keep them, they will make you stronger, deeper, wiser, and more successful. Not by magic, but by coherence. If you know someone who has been hurt by talking too much, share this message with them. Life doesn't just teach us to speak, it also teaches us to be silent. There's a reason why your plans must be kept quiet while they're still in their infancy. It's not superstition. It's not fear. It's protection. It's discipline. It's an emotional strategy because when plants are just seeds, they don't have roots yet. They don't have roots yet. And anything that doesn't have roots can be easily uprooted. In Japan, when someone is learning HA, their teacher won't let them talk about their progress for months. It's not for control. It's because the Japanese understand something that we in Latin America tend to forget. What's said too soon is weakened. The teacher knows that when the disciple speaks too soon, what they're looking for is not sharing, it's validation. And external validation is a very sweet poison. When you need approval to get started, you stop building from conviction and start building from fear. That's why your plans shouldn't be publicized. They should be nurtured. Many projects die not because of inability, but because of premature exposure. People die because others offer opinions, because someone laughs, because someone else projects their fear, and because one begins to doubt. I've seen talented people reveal their dreams with such enthusiasm who don't realize the weight they're giving away by doing so. They tell it to someone who doesn't know how to listen, who doesn't understand processes, who doesn't distinguish between a dream and madness, and a small comment is enough to throw their soul into disarray. Do you really think you can? So-and-so tried that and failed. At your age, that's no longer useful. That doesn't make any money. Who do you think you are? And you, who were firm, begin to tremble, not because your dream is weak, but because you exposed your seed to the wrong sani alay pal alta. Sometimes people don't support you not because they don't love you, but because it's not their vision. It's not their dream. It's not their mission. And expecting them to understand something that God put in your soul and not in theirs is unfair to you and to them. That's why your plans must be your private, sacred plans, protected until they're ready. And here comes a profound lesson. When your plan is silent, you are the only one who feeds it. When your plan is made public, everyone begins to feed it or drain it. There are those who believe they're talking to plants. This is unfair to you and to them. It makes them more real. But the truth is the other way around. What makes a plan real is action, not words. Consistency, not audience. Discipline, not approval, not approval. When I was young, I made a very common mistake. I'd reveal my projects too soon. It was my way of feeling supported. But one day, an elderly gentleman, one of those silent wise men, said to me, "Be quiet for a moment, my boy. Noise is more tiring than work." And he was right. He talked so much about what he was going to do that he left little energy to do it. He talked so much that he scattered it. He talked so much that I began to doubt. It was Japan that taught me to work before speaking, to build before announcing, to move forward before explaining, to wait for haka chibalara, to wait for silence by the root. One day, in a Japanese company, I heard a powerful phrase, if you say it too soon, it won't be yours. And although it sounded exaggerated, later I understood that it referred to the power of intention. When you speak too soon, you scatter your strength. When you are silent, you concentrate your strength. That is why success has a spiritual component. Not everything that is born in yours should be exposed to public opinion. The things that God revealed you so that you could build them. No, not so that you could explain them. When then should you speak? When it is ready, when it has shape, when it cannot be broken by someone else's opinion, when it no longer depends emotionally on applause, when the dream has enough roots to sustain itself, your plan should be kept secret until it is stronger than your doubt, until your discipline sustains it. Not your emotion, and until your silence protects it, not your need to tell it. And I want to tell you something that may ease your heart. You don't have to justify your silence. You don't have to explain why you don't tell everything. You don't have to ask permission to protect your vision. The one who is building should not give explanations. The one who is dreaming should not make noise. The one who is sowing should not be distracted. In the end, your plan does not need to be announced. It needs to be lived. That's it. And if you know someone who has worn themselves out by speaking too soon, share this message with them. Sometimes what destroys a dream is not a lack of talent, but an excess of noise. The second thing one must keep secret is one's spiritual life. And I want to say this delicately, but also firmly. The spiritual loses strength when it becomes a spectacle. It loses depth when it becomes an argument. It loses intimacy when it becomes a competition over aya. The spiritual life is not for show. It is for support. It is not for impressing. It is for strengthening. It is not for show. It is for transformation. Many people talk about this spirituality as if it were a trophy. Others publicize it as if it were a campaign. Still others compare it as if there were levels of I am more spiritual than you. And they do not realize that spirituality does not need applause. It only needs silence. In Japan, spirituality is invisible. No one presumes to meditate. No one presumes to pray. No one presumes to be grateful. No one presumes to fast. It is done, lived, embodied, because among them they understand something essential. The sacred loses its essence when it becomes noise. While I was living there, it caught my attention that in some temples it is forbidden to take photographs. It is not for tourism, it is not for control. It is because there are moments that must be experienced, not captured. Because presence is diluted when one is worried about showing it to the world. And that is spiritual life. When one exposes it too much, it weakens. When one keeps it to oneself, it strengthens. I have met deeply spiritual individuals who never express it in words. You can tell not by what they say, but by how they live, how they breathe, how they forgive, how they react, how they treat those who can offer them nothing. True spirituality does not need advertising, it shows. But there is a great risk today of turning spiritual life into content, into marketing, into public identity. And when spirituality becomes a show, it ceases to be spiritual and becomes a character and effort. That is why I say that this is the second thing that one must keep secret. Not to hide God, not to hide faith, but to protect the purity of the encounter. There are moments in life that are too profound to share. That day when one cried in silence and felt that something was holding one up. That day when one asked for help with one's soul and one's bones, and help arrived. That day when one felt a light that one cannot explain. Those moments are not told. We guard them in the heart, altar, not words root, not a mere decoration. A woman at a conference told me, Kenji, I want to tell everyone what God did for me. And I replied, tell them, Tell them, but don't use it. Because when one uses the spiritual as an argument, one loses the spirit. The spiritual is shared from humility, not from presumption, from love, not from imposition, from example, not from propaganda. Debe. That is why when one takes care of one's spiritual life in secret, something wonderful happens. Subsequent. Faith becomes intimate, deep, real. The connection becomes constant and not dependent on witnesses. It becomes a guide. It becomes a compass. It becomes companionship. Many people lose their spiritual life because they turned it into a public ritual but never into a private connection. And when the public disappears, their spirituality disappears too. What you share is shared from abundance, not from lack. What you keep is kept to strengthen the root. When one has 15 years of deep and silent spiritual life, no one knows, but everyone feels it. Peace is noticeable. Coherence is noticeable. Humility is felt. Presence is perceived. Wisdom is smelled, and something else. Spiritual life must be protected because it is vulnerable. Yes, vulnerable. When one prays with sincerity, the soul becomes soft. When one encounters God, one's heart is left open. And if one carelessly exposes that to the world, there are people who can hurt what one is still learning to nurture, not because they are bad people, but because it is not their process, it is not their sensitivity, it is not their time. That is why protect the spiritual is protecting emotional health. There is nothing wrong with sharing what one believes, but there is a great risk in sharing how one lives what one believes. That is intimate, that is sacred, that is secret. Spiritual life is not a stage. It is a refuge. And the refuge only fulfills its function when it is intimate in it. That is why you with affection keep your spiritual life in your heart there, Bharata. Protect it. Take care of it. Live it. Allow it to grow inward, not outward, so that when you speak your word, it does not sound loud. It sounds true. If you know someone whose faith has been weakened by external noise, share this message with them. Sometimes, what faith needs is not more people watching, it is more silent accompanying wambarali. The third thing you must keep secret is your healing process. And this is delicate because in our culture taught us that healing is telling everything, that healing is talking, repeating, explaining, exposing, but true healing is a much more intimate and silent act than we were led to believe. What you are healing inside of you is still fragile. It is not ready for judgment. It is not ready for opinion. It is not ready for external analysis. Because what is being repaired needs gentleness, not noise. When one begins to heal, the soul becomes vulnerable. It is like a freshly sutured wound. Even the slightest clumsy hand can open it. Any ignorant remark can bleed it. And any criticism, no matter how small, can infect it. That is why healing must be protected from the outside world. Not because it is a shameful secret, but because it is a sacred process. In Japan, when a ceramic object breaks, it is not immediately exposed, it is set aside, cleaned, evaluated, and only when the artisan is ready does he apply the kintsugi technique, joining the broken object with gold. But no one interrupts that process. No one has an opinion on how it should be glued. No one judges if the object should have broken. No one questions the time that takes. Because everyone understands that what is being repaired must be treated with honor. Sometimes we don't treat ourselves that way. We want to explain our pain. We want to justify our tiredness. We want to tell everyone why we suffer. And we do it so that we don't feel alone, but that exposure can be a trap mastermind. Not everyone has the sensitivity to support a soul in repair. Not everyone has the silence to listen to you without judging. Not everyone has the maturity to understand your process without contaminating it with their fear. There are people who, when you tell them about your healing process, instead of helping you, they fill you with anxiety. Are you still going through this? Why don't you get over it already? Could it be that you're exaggerating? What if you really don't have anything? And you, who are patching a crack, end up facing an emotional collapse you didn't need. That's why I say that healing is not exposed, it's cared for. Healing doesn't require an audience. Healing doesn't require witnesses. Healing requires silence. It requires time. It requires depth. When someone is rebuilding, the first thing you need is respect. Respect for you. Respect for your sensitivity. Respect for your story. Early exposure steals that respect. And I want to say this with love, but also with strength. There are people who enjoy listening to your wound more than watching you recover. People who just want to know out of curiosity, not to accompany you. People who do not seek to help you, they seek information. And when you're healthy, you can handle that. But when you are healing, you do not have that strength. That is why your process is yours. Your pain is yours. Your tears are yours. Your reanmas, your reconstruction is yours. And you must protect it as one protects a garden that is just sprouting. Healing means telling everything. Healing is working in silence until your soul can speak without breaking. Healing is turning pain into wisdom, and wisdom is not announced, it is embodied. Healing is forgiving yourself, and self-forgiveness is a whisper, not a shout. Healing is trusting again, but first with yourself, not with others. I have seen people who healed faster when they stopped explaining to the world what they felt. And I have seen others who never managed to heal because they wanted everyone to understand what they themselves had not fully understood. A man in a counseling session told me, Kenji, I feel so many people about my process, about my process. And I replied, the thing is, your wound doesn't need noise. It needs rest. And emotional reconstruction is the same as physical reconstruction. If you touch the wound too much, it won't heal. When the healing matures, when it truly consolidates, when it already has roots, when it no longer breaks with any wind only, then you can talk about it if you want. But you will no longer speak from the pain, you will speak from the light. Not from the wound, from the scar. And the scar, unlike the wound, no longer hurts. It teaches healing. It means allowing yours to be yourself again. But going back to being requires a deep encounter with yourself. And that encounter does not always need spectators once. If you know someone who is trying to heal amidst the noise, share this message with them. Maybe they don't need advice. Maybe they just need silence. The fourth thing you should keep secret is your acts of kindness. And this surprises many because we grew up in a culture where we want to establish or announce everything we do, but there is an ancient truth that never loses its validity. What is truly sacred is done in silence. I have seen this in Japan time and time again. The deepest kindness makes no noise, does not seek applause, does not desire recognition. True kindness does not carry a microphone. It carries intention. When I was a child, my father would repeat a phrase to me that over time became a compass for navigating life. What you do to be seen loses its power when you are seen. It took me years to understand it, but when I finally did, something changed in me. Because the kindness that needs to be advertised in order to feel valid ceases to be kindness. It becomes strategy, emotional marketing, a desperate attempt to fill internal voids. One day, while we were working in a neighborhood in Bogota, a young man approached me and said, Kenji, I helped a family and no one thanked me. They didn't even mention it. I replied, if you were looking for gratitude, you weren't said helping. You were negotiating. Kindness is not negotiable. Kindness is given, and what is given from the heart needs no echo because its reward does not come from outside and meaty. In Japan, there is a beautiful expression, okamad, which means something like, thanks to what is unseen, today I am, well, being a saldi. It is recognizing that behind every achievement, every step, every victory, there are invisible hands that supported us without asking for anything in return. Sometimes it was our parents. Sometimes a teacher, sometimes a neighbor, sometimes as a stranger, sometimes someone we never knew who they were. And I wonder, could it be that you are called to be that invisible hand for someone? Could it be that your life has the honor of being a silent bridge for others? Could it be that your greatest act of kindness will be precisely the one that no one finds out about? There are people who help to feel supurudugre. Others help so as not to feel guilty. Others help because they are afraid of being seen as indifferent. And others help because they simply love. The difference is clear. When you help from the ego, you need witnesses. When you help from the soul, you need silence. Silence purifies intention. I have seen beautiful things that will never appear on social media. The young man who brings food to the grandmother in the neighborhood without anyone asking. The man who pays a neighbor's debt without leaving his name. The woman who prays for someone who hurt her. Father who leaves at dawn to work without telling anyone how tired he is. The mother who swallows her own tears to give strength to her son. These acts do not appear in photos. They do not generate likes, but they build worlds, unite pieces of souls, transform generations. On the other hand, when kindness becomes a show, it empties motivation, is diluted, spiritual energy is contaminated, and action loses its inner weight. Jesus once said that your left hand should not know what your right hand is doing. The Japanese interpret it differently, but they reach the same point. Generosity is more powerful when it does not seek witnesses. Because when you help in silence, something profound happens in your heart. Your soul expands, your pride diminishes, your spirit is strengthened, your character is polished, and life returns to you multiplied what you gave without noise. Not because it is an exchange, not because it is a divine reward, not because there is a secret formula of the universe. It is not simpler. The good that you give in silence builds you from within. And when you are built from within, success finds you without you having to pursue it. In Colombia, Mexico, Japan, wherever I go, it is always the same. People who do good without advertising it become stronger, deeper, more emotionally stable. They do not live depending on applause. They do not live begging for gratitude. They do not live waiting for approval. They live free. And freedom is one of the main ingredients of success. A free soul acts better. A free heart decides better. A free mind creates better. That is why your acts of kindness must remain secret, because if you do them to demonstrate something, they lose their essence, warrior. But if you do them from love, then they become a seed that germinates without you having to see it. Success is not applause. Success is a consequence, and one of its deepest roots is in the good things you do when no one is watching. So take care of your intention. Take care of your heart. Take care of your silence. Do good. Do it anyway. Do it always. But do it without advertising it. Because true goodness also needs privacy to flourish. The fifth thing you should always keep secret is your spiritual strength. And when I say spiritual, I don't just mean religion. I'm talking about that thing that sustains you inside when the world outside falls apart. I'm talking about that silent conversation you have with yourself when no one else is there. I refer to the voice that accompanies you when you think you can't carry on. I'm talking about that connection with the divine, with life, with purpose that doesn't need witnesses because it's sacred. In Japan, spirituality isn't shouted, it's lived, not explained, it's embodied, not presumed, it's breathed. People don't feel the need to say, I am spiritual, because spirituality that needs to be advertised has already lost its center. True spirituality is like an invisible root, deep and silent, but it is the only thing that holds the tree up when the storm comes. I have seen people who talk a lot about God, faith, energy, and high vibrations, but their lives shatter at the first wind. And I have seen others who do not say a single word, but their whole life, hilusi, shakes around them, and yet they remain standing. Once, while working in a community in Bogota, I met a woman who never mentioned her faith. I never heard her speak about spirituality. I never saw her in a temple. I never heard her quote a verse, a phrase, a mantra, but when she entered a room, you felt at peace. And when she spoke, people relaxed. When you hugged her, you understood that something superior inhabited her. One day I asked her, where do you get so much strength? And she replied, in the unrecorded, I understood something I'll never forget. What truly sustains you does not need validation from anyone. Your spirituality does not have to convince others. Your faith does not have to be defended. Your purpose does not have to be explained. Your inner connection doesn't have to be publicized. Because when a person connects with the divine, the sacred, and life, their soul begins to have a glow that no one can imitate. A glow that doesn't come from makeup, success, or applause. It comes from silence. It comes from the pain experienced. It comes from resilience. It comes from searching. It comes from falling and getting back up. It comes from having been on the verge of giving up and not doing it. Authentic spirituality is what sustains you when there are no witnesses, when you cry alone, when fear visits you at dawn, when the path darkens, when doors close, when life seems meaningless. That's when that inner strength that no one taught you about, but that was always inside, appears. That strength that can be photographed, that can be tweeted, that can be included in an Instagram story. That strength that isn't displayed because displaying it weakens it. And I'll tell you something. Honestly, most people won't understand the source of your strength. And they don't have to understand it because they didn't live what you lived. They didn't cry what you cried. They didn't carry what you carried. They didn't survive what you survived. And that's why your relationship with God, with life, with the sacred, must be yours. Your refuge, your treasure, your root. Just sharing it is fine, but showing it off can rob it of depth. Sometimes, when we talk too much about our spirituality, we contaminate it with guttural opinions. And spirituality that depends on human approval stops being spiritual and becomes social. You don't need to justify your faith. You don't need to explain your purpose. You don't need to convince anyone of your path. What matters is not that they understand it. What matters is that it sustains you. And when that internal support is real, life changes in a silent but powerful way. You become more serene. You become more patient. You become more compassionate. You become more compassionate. You become more you. That's the kind of spiritual strength that isn't preached down. It's passed on. That's why this fifth thing must remain